Hi guys, my name is Hilarious. I'm a coach, and today I'm going to be reviewing this VOD by a Plat, Tracer, and Pharah. So we're going to see that he's going to play Tracer on this map and then Pharah on the next. This is the comp we're running up here. They're going to slowly approach the point basically and fight for Orisa and Hog are going to fight the front line, as well as Brigitte and pretty much everyone else. Our Tracer is going to have to go off on his own and look for picks on the back line, or try to draw resources away from this team so that the front line can win the fight. This is fine. He's going to enter his first duel here against Doomfist. Tracer counters Doomfist pretty well, actually, because of her blinks and her mobility. He can kind of kite and dodge, Doomfist's attacks. Like, if Doomfist is seismic slamming, you have all the time in the world to just blink out of the way and be able to dodge it, and you're going to be able to kind of beat him out this way. So this is a good fight to take. He's going to disengage here because he gets seismic slammed on. And now going back into this fight, this is now 1v2. You got to ask yourself as Tracer, is this a good fight to take? And the answer is actually yes, because as long as you don't die, you're still drawing away the attention of both Mercy and Doomfist. That's two characters on their team for one of yours, and both, pretty high value characters. So as long as you don't die, this is pretty effective, and you're doing a lot for your team just by not dying. But of course, you want to be able to extend the fight as long as possible, and how do you do that? Well, by putting pressure on their Mercy, or trying to kill someone, basically. So killing someone is even better in this situation. So we'll see how Kid approaches this. Kid starts attacking Doomfist first. Doomfist goes out of range, goes on the Mercy. Mercy's able to fly out. And then Kid goes back on the Doomfist, gets him pretty low, and doesn't, follow up on that. I think if he had blinked there and gone a bit more aggressive, because he still has recall, right? If he had gone a bit more aggressive there, he might have been able to finish off that Doomfist. But let's take a look at that initial engagement first. So when Kid enters this engagement again, his first focus is going to be on this Doomfist here. But maybe it should have been on the Mercy. Mercy is the best target to focus here. And the reason being is that Doomfist is being pocketed by this Mercy Beam. So you're not going to be really able to out-damage this Mercy Beam, especially on a 250 health character like Doomfist, and expect to be able to kill this person in any reasonable amount of time. So if you're trying to threaten a target here and actually, try to kill them, then your first target here should be Mercy. Only after this Doomfist exits the fight does he focus the Mercy, and he brings them to about almost half health. So if this first clip had actually gone on the Mercy, then maybe the second clip goes in, and then a quick blink to follow up, maybe this Mercy actually dies here. But instead, first clip goes on Doomfist, goes back to fighting Doomfist, Doomfist gets out. So that is one thing we're going to focus on this VOD, target priority. Right now we have lost both our Orisa and Ashe. So the goal here is, usually to either reset, or, in this case, this is fine too. It's actually to wait for your team and wait for the proper opportunity to re-engage. Now we're down 3 members. And they're going to be respawning here. The Kid will actually make the choice to go and flank. So, the thing needs to be said about flank timing is when you're flanking as Tracer and putting pressure on their backline, you want to try to time this so that it's the exact same time as when your team is engaging. Otherwise, right, if there's like, say, 5 members, on the enemy team, and they are not really preoccupied with anything else, they can just, 6 members on the enemy team, and they're not preoccupied with anything else, they can just turn all of their attention on you. So that's why flanking, when your team is engaging and drawing all their attention, and being able to put pressure on the front line, and basically able to punish them when they go for you, there's threats from 2 angles, and that's, an optimal way to flank. But he's going to flank here while the team is sort of out of position. Now we're 4 down, right? We just lost Orisa. I guess Orisa's coming back, but, we lost Orisa, Brig, Ashe, and now we've lost Ana. But Orisa's coming back. Still, though, team is fully not regrouped. I don't think this is a good time to flank. He's going to go for it anyway. And that's pretty poor as well. So let's take a look at that. Now, we want to talk about Tracer. If we want to talk about Tracer and how to, do the most damage with her effectively, we need to talk about her effective range. And this is clearly out of her effective range. So Hanzo's alone here. He's getting the Mercy Beam, but not anymore. He's sort of in range to, maybe 1 clip. He's pretty low. Or not low, but he's in range to 1 clip if Kid all outs here. Remember, he still has recall, so that's going to be important too. We're going to look at recall usage, or lack thereof. So instead of actually blinking in to try and get a 1 clip here maybe, because, you've decided to take this engagement already, he's going to shoot first. And upon doing that, he's not going to get full value out of his guns. Maybe you get more headshots if you're closer, etc. But you blink in first, you're able to bring this Hanzo really low, and maybe you finish off with melee, or maybe you're able to 1-clip him just from this one blink engagement, but all you've done here is really tickle him a little bit and run away. So you've given away your position, basically, and not been able to secure kill on the Hanzo because you don't know your engagement distance and effective range. This is what I mean. Because there's not much pressure on the front line right now, Doomfist is going to be free to kind of draw back there, and there's not going to be many repercussions for the front line here. See, because your team is not pushing in, they're not ready. So flank timing is important. Being able to engage at the right time is also important. So he's going to take this fight with Doomfist here. And now's a good time to back out. So now going back into the second engagement, in this sort of form, we again no, there's a Doomfist here, there's a Moira here, right? Same as before, pretty much, except the Mercy is now replaced with a Moira. So again, the target focus is gonna have to be on the Moira if you're gonna take this fight. You want to be able to pressure and put your damage on someone you might have the potential to actually kill. That person is definitely not Doomfist. So he's gonna go back in on this. Shots going Doomfist, blinks in, misses Pulse Bomb, but you know, putting Pulse Bomb on Doom actually is the better choice there. So that's another thing. Alt's target priority is not necessarily the same thing as target priority for most of your cooldowns or most of your primary fire damage on heroes. Like, why is it better to put Alt on Doomfist and not Moira here? It's better to put Alt on Doomfist because Doomfist doesn't have a reliable way of, you know, dodging this. Like, Moira has Fade and Doomfist has Alt. So if you think that Doomfist doesn't have Alt, it is a good chance to well, he's about to have Alt, but if you think that he doesn't, that's not a bad decision. You know, maybe you didn't ult track, and if you didn't ult track and you put it on him when you know, if you had ult track, you would have known he had ult and he would have dodged it. That's a mistake. But if you you know, ult tracked and maybe your estimation was just wrong, you're still making the correct decision by putting the Pulse Bomb on Doomfist. So that's good. I'm glad he didn't go for the Moira with Pulse Bomb. But now, as we're re-engaging the fight again, targets changed again. So now we don't have ult. Now we're just primary firing. Well, then we can't be focusing the Doomfist here. And let me just take a look at that fight again. Remember, now he's re-engaging without recall. So he's forced to use recall here after he Pulse Bomb. Actually, he's not forced to do that. Let's take a look at that again. So he gets healed, right? He engages again with blinks. He throws his Pulse Bomb out and just instinctively recalls. I see a lot of Tracers do this where they think that every time they have to, you know, every time they Pulse Bomb, they immediately have to E. This guy still has one blink up, and he's not immediately threatened to use recall here. Recall has a lot of value. It gives you your health back, and it puts you back into, you know, maybe a safe position. But is recall really necessary here over a blink? Maybe not. Maybe he could have waited a little longer. Maybe he could have gotten out with just a blink. And now he's taking this engagement without recall. And, you know, without recall, you can't be committing so hard to this fight. Like, he uses his last blink to go in, and he gets one blink up. And he has no recall, and he's down to half health. This is a really precarious situation. You're going to see that he just barely gets out with his life. Doomfist landed slam there. If Orb was a little more placed, look, 23 health, he would have died there. So knowing when your recall is up and knowing when what that allows you to do is really important. Again, recall usage, the example we had before, Hanzo here. So the Hanzo here, instead of blinking in, right, knowing you have recall, he's scared to use his blinks here. And then recall to escape. So knowing what you can do when you have recall and what you can't do, you know, because you don't have recall is really important as Tracer. So in this fight, recall usage, target priority. Didn't focus the Moira, just like he didn't focus the Mercy last time, and didn't use his recall correctly. Alright, so at this point the fight is pretty precarious for you to attempt to win. And going in like this is not great. Especially going in like this after you've used your recall is not great at all. At that point, right, at this point, before he uses recall, fight is lost. Okay, so maybe you gotta try to get a quick kill on the Doomfist. He recalls here again, instead of blinking, maybe. So, you know, Seismic Slam, Roadhog is ulting, 150 health. He just panics, because he's afraid he's gonna get hit by the Seismic Slam, but again, you can dodge that, right? And recalls. And then now that he doesn't have recall, he goes back in. So, you need to pay attention to your recall if you're playing Tracer. What that allows you to do, and when you need to use it. When do you want to use recall most of the time? Usually it's when you've already started taking damage, when you're down to half health, because recall, again, you're losing on all the value of getting health back from your recall if you're only using it to displace yourself. Your blink can displace you. It can force you to go aggressive. You can be used defensively, dodge things. It can be used to get you into a safer position. Recall can also do that, but can only put you in a safer position, and what it does is give you your health back. So if you're not using it, if you're using it full health, when you could use a blink easily just to displace yourself and dodge something, then you're not making full value out of your recall. And going in, conversely, when you're going in without recall, you're putting yourself in a really dangerous situation, because recall gives you health and displaces you when you're out of flex. He's going to go in and get the kill on Doomfist. Doesn't matter though, fight's already lost, just want to be disengaging here. So this escape here is pretty poor. If your goal is to actually reset and escape the fight entirely, why are you peeking back into danger, right, and exposing yourself to the Hog here? Like, Hog hooks you here, then you're dead. But he misses because he aims for more and more fades, but if Moira was in front of you, then he would have hit you instead, and you would be dead here and stagger yourself for your team. Like, you have a goal as Tracer. It's to stay alive and to get picks. You can't get picks here because you're only looking at the front line, and it's a lost fight. So getting picks doesn't do much for your team anyway. You need to stay alive. This is the point at which you need to stay alive. That's your other goal. So that you can, engage when the rest of your team comes back. You don't stagger yourself for your team and make it harder for them to engage on the next fight. You almost die here. 27 health. And, hold on. I believe because of poor recall usage earlier, right? If you were in a really sticky situation here, you couldn't have used recall to save yourself. Right there as well, taking a little bit of damage, and when we know he doesn't have hook, right? You're too scared. So you go in, you take a little bit of damage from the Hog, and you recall. When there's no fear of hook, there's no fear of anything, really, at that moment. And you're still peeking angles, like maybe Hog has hook there again. Now in this engagement with Hanzo, I can tell that you're trying to recall here. You're going in, so you don't wait for your team to push in and then maybe take a sneaking angle. You're frontlining actually by going in immediately and being the first target of everyone's focus. And you should know that Hanzo's here because you saw him there last time, or at least consider it. But you dive straight in, I think, to get past them. You see a Hanzo arrow fly there too. Let's catch that. Right, we see the Hanzo arrow. We know there's a Hanzo there, so maybe you actually are trying to aggro on him. But you're doing it without recall. So you go in, you take a shot, you start shooting, you panic. I can tell because you're not continuing to shoot at him or blinking or anything. You're trying to press your recall, and then you end up not being able to because you use your recall too early. So you need to know, again, when you have recall and when to use recall. And if you know when you have recall, what decision should I be making? I have recall. That means I can play a little bit more aggressively here. Or I have recall here, but I don't want to use it because I can use something else to dodge damage or whatever. Recall should be considered a last resort button. You really don't want to use it unnecessarily, and you really want to have it when you're in a bad situation. This is poor as well. You almost die here just because you peek the single. You know that the Hanzo's still there, and Hanzo's peeking you, and you're Tracer. And if he's just staring you down, you can't just, like, walk back into the line of fire here and take a damage that almost kills you. Like, if Moira had just right-clicked there, you're dead. But you recall there. So there it is. That's what the value of recall. You get really low, and you're able to use that to save yourself in a sticky situation. But now you don't have recall. So now that you've used recall for the next 12 seconds, you need to be thinking, oh, I don't have recall, so how am I going to play this? Okay, so let's talk about that pulse bomb. Again, here you don't have pulse bomb, but you're trying to open up, I guess, something for your team. So you stick the Orisa. Now, going back to the the topic of target priority, why is Orisa a bad target to pulse bomb? So, one, she's a tank. So you see, just right there, she doesn't die, right? But she gets really low, and if you had actually put your clip into her, she would have died. But in general, tanks are pretty hard to kill with pulse bomb. But if you had clipped her there, she also would have died, and you didn't. You need to know like how much damage pulse bomb does. But secondly, she very easily could have survived that by using Fortify, and you don't know whether she has Fortify or not, or at least you couldn't have known. You couldn't have known whether she had Fortify or not because you were busy with Hanzo, and nothing indicated that you knew she had Fortify or not. If she has Fortify, then your ult is useless. It's very tempting to use Pulse Bomb on big tanks like Orisa because it's so easy to land, but you usually also get the least value out of them. So who is a good target to use Pulse Bomb on? Well, as I said before, Moira has Fade, so you want to only use Pulse Bomb on Moira if you know that she doesn't have Fade. So who's next? Doomfist? Yeah, you can use it on Doomfist, and again, as we mentioned before, you want to make sure that he doesn't have his ult, right? So you got to be tracking those with these two. Now, Mercy is pretty much always a good target for Pulse Bomb. She can't really survive it at all unless she gets like a Zarya Bubble or something, or Diva Matrixes or whatever. But there's no problem. We can't like. That's not a concern with this comp here. So Mercy's a good target, and Hanzo's a good target. And if you're playing any game as a Tracer, right, the first thing you should be considering, even as soon as you know what their comp is, who am I going to be able to use Pulse Bomb on later? Because what happens here, I think, is you're thrown into a desperate situation, right, where clock's ticking down, and you start to panic, and you don't think about who to use Pulse Bomb on. You just join the front line, you get sucked up, and you're like, this is a good opportunity to dash in and use my Pulse Bomb on someone. And I think you just see the Orisa, it's a big target, easy to land, think about it immediately, but if you had thought about it before, you already know who your Pulse Bomb targets are, and you're not having to choose it in an instant and make a bad decision that way. So if you know that your Pulse Bomb targets are going to be Mercy and Hanzo, you're playing for a Pulse Bomb on those two. And this doesn't go to waste. Again, even if you had killed the Orisa there, still a bad decision, because you know that she has Fortify. But if you are at all going to... If you've already landed a Pulse Bomb on a target, right, that's tank, you need to be able to follow that up with damage from your primary fire. So, bad decision to begin with, because she doesn't have Fortify. Or you don't know that she has Fortify or not, right? And then you don't follow up this whole time this Pulse Bomb is blinking, you're just waiting for her to die. You don't know how much of your damage your Pulse Bomb does, and you don't follow it up with any of your primary fire damage. So your acquisition is on the Doomfist right now. Good, fine target. You don't go aggressive here. You have a blink, you're able to quickly dash here and turn this corner and finish him off. Look how low he is. But you just kind of slowly walk around instead, and he's able to escape. Alright, so I think that's about it for this map. So on that map, we talked about target priority and recall usage. Target priority is basically in those situations where you're fighting a DPS and healer, right? The healer is just totally free to heal the other DPS if you don't focus that healer, meaning you're not getting value on anyone. You need to be focusing that healer first if you're in an engagement like that, where you're dealing with two people. And we talked about how those engagements are actually good, right? As long as you can extend them, and as long as you're picking the right target during them. As for recall usage, need to know when this is up, and need to know what this allows you to do, right? If it's up, you're allowed to play more aggressively. If it's down, you need to play safe until it's back up. And you need to use it accordingly too. Am I using this just to displace myself, or am I using it to gain health? Where is this going to put me at? That's that's an obvious consideration as Tracer, but this is the most valuable ability you have, so you need to think about it. So on this map, Kid is going to be playing Pharah, and in some cases, when you change to a different hero, your potential target priority changes depending on the comp, depending on the map, and depending on the situation. In this situation, what are we looking at here? We're looking at sort of a weird comp. Ball and Hog don't really synergize too well together, but Ball's going to enable you to dive, basically. He's going to look to go in and basically disrupt them. We're not playing really behind a shield or anything like that, so winning the shield war is kind of a moot point. They've already, quote-unquote, won the shield war. The best bet in playing this is going to be to dive when your Wrecking Ball is. Hope your Hanzo can get an off angle or some way to get around the shield, and then a win from there. So just breaking the shield here, I don't think is going to be a good option, a fast enough option for you to be able to secure victory. You just need to be able to aggro when your Wrecking Ball dives in. And of course, during the opportunity, you want to be looking to kill their supports. So Moira Mercy, you know that they have that from last round, or you should be expecting, at least as a base point, that they have that from last round. And those are really high value supports for this comp. So you have Orisa, Hog, and basically all of their healing is going to come from Moira. And all the damage boosting is going to come from Mercy onto Hanzo and Doomfist. So Mercy, Moira, huge targets. Hanzo, pretty big target. Doomfist, a big target as well. Alright, so I don't really like this Concussive Blast. So, again, your main targets are not Hog and Orisa. Hog has so many resources to be able to get himself back up to full health. Mercy Beam's on him. He has his Vape. He has Moira, with his heals coming from the side. This person's not going to die. You won't need to be, focusing support here, right? So instead of using Concussive Blast to blast Hog and potentially Orisa out of position, which is really hard to do because she has Fortify, right? Instead of doing that, you should use Concussive Blast, I think, to launch yourself either here or here to get a kill on Doomfist Moira or Hanzo and Mercy. And I think in this case, Hanzo Mercy is a little easier to kill. Hanzo has a lower health pool, meaning direct rocket twice, he's dead. Same thing with Mercy. Moira has Fade, Orb, etc. But generally, if you go in this direction, you're maybe able to kill Mercy or Hanzo here. So you're still shooting the Hog here. At this point, the fight is basically lost, and you need to be reset or getting out. But you're sort of stalling here. And then you get really low. And if you're to die here, like if Hog shot a right click up here and you died right here, this is catastrophic. So knowing your fights are lost. So your Lucio just goes in, your ball dies, and then Lucio dies. And you still have Mercy res, so it's not necessarily a lost fight. But right now, what you can't be doing is shooting at the front line. You need to know your targets here. Like you go for Sean the Doofus initially first, but then you're just sort of pumping this damage randomly at Hog and then Orisa, and then you're not going for these two. These are your main targets, Hanzo and Mercy. Hanzo because he's a big threat to you, your biggest threat on the whole team. And then Mercy because she's able to res other members of her team, because she's squishy, because she's important. These are the targets you need to be going for. The easiest targets to kill, and also the most important targets for you to kill. So right here you seem to be focused on something else. Hog has already gotten a pick. You can hear him behind you. You can also hear that they're see that they're contesting the point and that Orisa's placed her bonkos, but you're not turning your attention to them at all. Instead, maybe I think Hanzo had called out that there's an Ashe here. Sonic Air only reveals her now, but maybe he saw her coming from mid earlier. That's the only explanation I can see for you going onto, or like having your attention on this side of the map for so long, even after they started contesting the point. So it seems like you're tunnel visioning. But you could have at least given a quick look to at least figure out the enemy team's positioning, the rest of the enemy team's positioning besides this Ashe. So right here I'd really be looking to Barrage, and we're talking about basically two clusters of targets, because Barrage kind of spreads out into a cluster, and not necessarily an individual target. But you can basically split into two categories. You're either going to be barraging most of the time the backline or the tanks. And generally the backline is better. Why? For the reasons we mentioned before. They're easy targets to kill, or they're the easiest targets to kill. They're usually really high value. And especially DPS, if you've got a McCree on the enemy team, you can't be barraging out in the open and not kill that McCree in the first few seconds. Unless you're getting like a 4-man barrage and trading your life for that, knowing that the McCree is going to kill you. So in this case, that McCree is Hanzo, and Hanzo has the ability to shut you down. So you need to be basically looking to kill him, because otherwise he's going to kill you during your barrage. You're a sitting duck. So let's see how you use barrage this fight. So 3 are down. Maybe this is a good indicator to not use barrage anyway, but you end up using barrage here. And you're just barraging basically the Hog. So why is this a poor use of barrage? Well, because it wasn't focused on the easiest targets to kill, nor was it focused on the most important targets to kill. So Hanzo, Mercy, Moira can fade out, so she's a little harder to kill. But someone like Hanzo would have been a great person to target with this barrage. The question is, should you have even used barrage at all in this fight? Well, you're 3 down, right? You know that there's 3 people down, meaning your options are to A, lose and save your barrage for next fight, just die, reset, and use it for later, or get a really, really high value barrage. And the only way you're going to get a really high value barrage is if you aim it on all the squishy targets and eliminate them. Because otherwise, this is going to happen. You're going to focus it all on a heavily pocketed tank that has its own healing ability, and get knocked out by the person you should have focused instead. So your next engagement is going to be here, and this is good target priority. So instead of using Concussive Blast like we have before to try and just knock the tanks out of position, what you're doing is actually to accelerate yourself and trying to get on the backline. Because again, these are your highest value targets, so you need to establish a way to get to your highest value targets and eliminate them. And this is good. This is textbook. You're basically Concussive Blasting in to get the Hanzo and get out. Fortunately, you go for a health back here, and you've extended without the support of your team. So you try to go for health back here, but instead, Ashe has already taken that, or whoever, and you're going to lose the Mercy here. But as far as the target priority goes, that was the correct decision. So what did we talk about in this spot? Well, we talked about target priority. Now, your target priority needs to have some improvement and thought put into it. And what you want to be thinking about when you're actually considering target priority and who to focus on the enemy team is how easy the targets are to kill and how important they are to kill. And obviously, it's a summation of those two factors. So I look at those examples with Doomfist and Moira fighting you, or Doomfist and Mercy fighting you. Doomfist in that moment is not easy to kill at all. He is important to kill, but he's not easy at all. Your second target there is easy and important to kill. Mercy and Moira are both squishies. You can put a lot of damage into them. And by doing that, you're having a target that's actually under threat of dying and not, just going to be pocketed and healed. The other thing we talked about on Tracer is recall usage. Again, know what it is you can do when you have recall. When you have recall, you can play a bit more aggressively and rely on your recall to get you out of sticky situations. But if you don't have recall, then you can't put yourself into a very dangerous situation. Otherwise, you're going to risk dying. The other thing to note is when you're using your recall too early. So when you're using it too defensively and not getting the most value out of it. If you're at full health and you're just in a little bit of a dangerous situation and you can exit that situation just by using your blinks, do not use your recall. You're not getting full value out of it. So that's going to be it for this VOD review. I hope anyone who watched this found this a bit informative, and I'll see you in the next one.